So this plane looks just as good upside down as it does right side up. We don't know which way is which other than the name on it. So welcome back to the Nurila Glacial aircraft build, and it's going together fun, using a lot of this. Let's continue on with video number 2 in the series. All right, so with our wing physically centered just by feeling, we're going to measure and confirm that we're centered. So we're taking our tape measure and we're going to put it in a repeatable location on the horizontal stab tube, and our wingtip is exactly 49 inches. I'm using our inch tape measure because it's got the same measurements on both sides. Our millimeter and centimeter tape measure doesn't have the same measurements on both sides of the tape. So we do the exact same thing on this side with our tape measure in the same type of position, and we are exactly 49 inches to the wingtip. So that is perfect. So with that in the perfect spot, we've got it taped in place, of course, so it's not going to slide anywhere. And this is where we want to drill our wing bolts. All right, so I ended up drilling our holes here. I just used a blind nut and ended up drilling these out to 3 millimeters. So I did a smaller hole that fit through the blind nut initially. So just took one of my blind nuts here, laid it over top because it's almost the same size as what the caps are going to be, and then drilled through the center. So that's done. Now what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to start gluing the wing. So the wing, I'm very happy with this position of the wing right now. We do need to get the front support fit a little bit better. So I'm going to flip this fuselage over. We're going to get that front pin support piece that mounts right here. We're going to get that sanded and fit, and then we're going to probably flip the plane back over, check and make sure this is all good. It should be good. I mean, it's pretty much stuck in the right spot. And then when we glue this front portion in, we're going to put some weight on there just to make sure it's tucked down all the way, because we do have a little bit of movement there. But I'm going to get that kind of queued up here, so let's flip this guy over. All right, so we flipped the plane over. It's on our stand here. Everything looks like it stayed good. And we can just pop this guy out. Now, we don't have our pins glued in yet into the wing. That may be a bit of a detriment here, because those pins will sometimes slide in, but I think we'll be okay as long as we get this piece fitting well. So we do have to do a little bit of sanding on this guy. Number one, we want to sand this piece for contact, basically just our edges a little bit. And then we're probably going to have to do a little bit of sanding on the bottom where you've got this residual glue in the fuselage there. So I'm going to do a little bit of sanding on this guy, and let's see how we can get this fitting nice and solid. And ultimately what we're trying to do here is tuck it towards the leading edge of the wing. All right, didn't take much, just took it to our belt here and just sanded the bottom a little bit. And now with that done, it tucks all the way in and sits against this piece right here. So I'm going to mix up some high sol and get that guy started. Now the other thing to do is we've got our piece that goes across here that we did as a very first step in the series, which are these guys right there. So I'm going to pick the appropriate one. I don't remember which one is which. I think it's the more narrow one because this one goes up top, I believe. So we'll figure that part out. But that is something we want to put some glue on here as well too, and get our bolts fastened through the base of the wing and get that guy installed as well. So we've got these bottom pieces ready to glue in. So on the bottom wing, you're using the narrower piece because the big one doesn't fit. So that gets glued like that. So our blind nuts are sitting like this. Our gluing surface is on this side. And for our front piece, I took some sandpaper and just sanded the edges. Now the edges are the important one because that's where you're getting the glue. Trying to keep this as light as possible. So, you know, if we were doing a jet as an example, we may put glue on this entire surface and really fill it in there. But on something like this, we just want a nice glue fillet on the bottom edge. So those pieces are ready to go. We've got our high sol mixed up. and there's a reason we use high sol. So in a scenario like this, you've got, I really want that glue to stay put. Now I'm relaying this because on my jet build videos, most jet guys kind of know that. They kind of use aero epoxy, high sol, or some form of it. There's lots of different types out there. But if you're just into pattern aircraft and you're putting something like this together, generally you don't want to use regular epoxy unless you're adding like micro balloons or silica or cotton flock to it, because you want that material to stay put. If you just use regular epoxy, it's going to flow and not stay where you put it. So that's why we use aero epoxy. And this of course has been a tip time, and this tip time is brought to you by trusty bent screwdriver. So for our front piece, I'm going to mostly avoid underneath the pins there. So I'm just going to take some of this epoxy and mainly focus it on our center location, like that. And I'm just putting this in there because it's going to be probably the cleanest way to glue this. And then as soon as we tuck that support piece in, it's going to push that glue towards the leading edge of the wing. So just lay that in there like that, and then we want to get a little bit installed on each side. So now we're going to take our piece and we're going to get it installed. Should go on quite easily now that we've sanded the bottom out, or at least it did before. All right, so that went in nicely, and now we'll just tuck it all the way back. Okay, so that looks good. All right, and for our rear support here, what I'm going to do is put a little bit of high sol in the center, a little strip on each side, or actually what I might do is just put that strip on afterwards. But I want to get this installed in the fuselage, get our bolts put through so that wing is sucked down nice and tight, or at least it's all installed and we can flip it over and then tighten it up once we've measured it out. Now I do have some preliminary hardware set up here. So these are 3mm bolts. They do have a shoulder on them as well. You can see there. And I have used a couple cap washers here. So we shouldn't need a ton of glue here. I'll just put a nice solid bead down the center, and this will squish out and fill any imperfections, and then we can tool it with our finger afterwards. So that's done. Now we'll just get this laid in the fuselage. So I'm just getting one of these bolts put through. Number one, to check the length, because I haven't checked them. There we go. And then now we'll get this kind of laid in the right spot. So all of this kind of hinges on that tape holding everything in the right spot. Now we don't have any movement built in to our bolt heads here. So really everything should line up just perfectly. So that bolt's kind of screwed in. I'll screw our other one in. Okay, so I'm going to get those snugged up a little bit, and I'm going to snug them up so I can put some glue on the edge of the support. So I'm not going tight at all, I'm just getting a little bit of pressure installed, and that's going to keep everything locked in place. What it also does is squishes out our glue on our piece there, which is good. All right, so if you look in there, you can see the glue in the center is squished out. Now I'm going to take Trusty and I'm going to put a little bit of high sol on the edge of each of the right and left hand side of those blind nuts, and that's a wicked step completed. All right, so now that we've got our glue installed on the front and back piece, it's time to get this flipped back over. So we're going to put it back on our stand, and we're going to check and make sure that we're happy with the position of everything. Okay, so we're all solid now. So first thing we're going to measure is we're going to measure our wingtips again, just like we did previously. So we've got our back tightened up. That's nice and snug against the fuselage. The front part here, we're going to put some weight on that once we're happy with everything. But let's do our measurements next. So exactly the same process, getting this in a repeatable location. Exactly 49. Exactly 49. So that's good. So what we'll do now is we're going to take some of our exercise balls and add them to the front part of the wing. Now, the point of this is to make sure that our leading edge is sucked all the way down. So that piece right now, and we've got a little bit of play in the holes where those pins go through. So we want to make sure that the pin carrier or pin keeper is actually what's going to ultimately determine this position. So we want to get this nice and snug down as far as we can. So we'll just add some weight on there. And as soon as we do that, that pushes that wing down. Perfect. So we'll probably add one more ball, I think, on top just to make sure we're all happy and everything's good. All right, guys, so that is a huge step accomplished. All right, guys, so I've pulled the tape off the back here just to feel that guy. Everything's good with it, obviously. Okay, so we're just going to leave this sit now for a while. That's one of the things about using like the Hysol 9462 is you really have to leave it sit and do its thing. It kind of kicks off in about 2 hours, but it basically takes a full 24 hours to cure. 8 hours, it's pretty darn solid. So there's a shot of the front receiver portion. I just reached in there and pushed on it, made sure it was seated nice, and everything looks really good with it. So there's not a whole lot we can do at this point, so we're just going to leave that stuff be and let it cure. All right, and just in time, we got our order from F3A Unlimited. Let's take a look at what we got here. I haven't pulled the stuff out yet. I just opened up the box. So we have a tail wheel, which is awesome. Just a nice light little guy. I ordered the lightest one possible, so just a nice little guy. Nez, it's not your box, buddy. Not yet. We've got the Gator RC battery tray kit. Now, yeah, I figured this is probably the better way to go, and saw this kit on their website and thought it was a good idea. So anyways, got the Gator RC battery kit. Ordered a bunch of connectors here, sort of for this kit and just for stock, so we've got those. And we've got the Seacraft washers, and we've got some Seacraft axles. These are the 16 millimeter axles, yes. So I think they offer them in 16s and 20s maybe. So anyways, I went with the 16s because these are fairly narrow wheel pants. So that's the way we went. Oh, and over here we've got the Mizon speed controller. Now I went with the Beck speed controller because this is going to be such a simple way for this aircraft to operate instead of having a separate battery for the receiver. I want to keep this light, simple, easy to operate, and I think this was the better route, which is why I went this way. And we're using very small servos, of course, in this plane. The only big servo will be the one that's mounted in the front here for the rudder. That is the speed controller for the aircraft. A very nice unit. Of course, telemetry all jives with Jetty as well. We've got a bunch more of the Seacraft washers, and then just some bullet connectors. So yeah, so that's where I got this stuff from, F3A Unlimited. First time I've ordered from them and been on their website. Tons of great stuff, so check it out if you're into this type of plane. I'm assuming if you're into this type of plane, you know about this already. All right, so next bit of gluing we're going to do is we're going to do the horizontal stab tube. Now I've put the actual stabs on here, played with everything, made sure that this jived with this, and we were happy with positioning. So we're doing two things here. Number one, as we talked about previously, we're putting pressure on this side, that direction. pressure on this side, that direction. The other thing we need to do just to get this bang on is I've also measured this angle here, and we just need to put a little bit of forward pressure on it. And that brings it into perfect alignment with regards to the fuselage. So that is awesome. Happy we took some time and played around with that and gave that some thought. So I'm going to mix up some more high sol, and we're going to get that guy glued in place. Horizontal stab tube all set up. So obviously we've talked about this already with pressure up on that side, pressure down on that side, forward pressure on this side, and that is going to be a perfect setup. So everything is good with that. So this one's a little tricky, just got to be really careful because you don't want to get any epoxy gluing the tube into the phenolic tube. So we've made sure we've cleaned that up nicely. The masking tape is key as well too. I used a Q-tip cotton swab to tool around the tubing just to make sure that we don't have any excess there. Now where that tube does plug into the horizontal stab, there's a bit of space around everything. So really that's going to work out just perfect. So that's awesome, happy with that. So we're going to leave that be and let it do its thing and come back and take a look at it later. So we flipped the plane over, taking the bottom wing off obviously. And while I had some high sol mixed up yesterday, I glued the pins for our lower wing in. I just put some high sol in the holes, cleaned it off, slipped these guys in, and now they're nice and solid. Those are such an accurate fit, you could probably get away with using some CA, but we do have the pins installed, and this isn't totally accurate because that wing that I just showed you is the bottom wing, but basically if this is our bushing on the bottom there, we've got the pin coming out about maybe 10 millimeters past the bushing, and I made sure that I was happy with the way the wing came off and on with that amount extended out. So next thing we're going to work on and get glued up is the top wing. So the top wing is very much the same as the bottom. What we're going to do is we're going to get this part, we'll get the wing installed, get the front tabs locked in, get that guy taped down and kind of solidified where we want it. Then we're going to measure to the tail, doing exactly the same thing, confirming that our wing is nice and straight. And once we're happy with that, we're going to drill out our back and get this stuff glued exactly the same way like we did the bottom wing. All right, so we've got the top wing all glued in place, doing its thing. So this is a little bit tricky. Honestly, if I was to do this again, I would take the piece that gets glued on the inside of the fuselage, and I would also use that as a reference point for these two holes. Everything's pretty accurate, but you might find that like if you're a little bit off with these guys, it does make a difference in obviously getting these screwed into the blind nut because that's a fixed dimension. But anyways, I got the plate started on the inside, put some high sol on there, screwed it all down, flipped the plane over on one of our other stands, got some high sol installed on this carbon piece right here at the leading edge of the top wing, and flipped it over. Obviously it's sitting on our stand from RC Custom 3D printing. We've put weights on the front of the wing, and that helps to push all of this stuff down and get everything in line. So right now the base of the wing, or the underside of the wing, is sitting in the wing saddle, and everything's nice and solid. So we're gonna let that cure and do its thing. While we are letting the front wing cure, we had some high sol mixed up, so we took our horizontal stab tube and glued in some wood dowel. That's about 1 inch long, so that gives us a screw-in point for the horizontal stabs. Our incidence pin or anti-rotation pin, that's been glued in with high sol as well. We've got the equal amount sticking through. And then while we've got some extra epoxy mixed up, it's time to get our rudder horns installed. Now, there's balsa in this area, which is great. Looks like a couple different horn styles, but this is the one that I'm using for the rudder. So this is how we prep this off. This is all ready to go. I've taped around our control horn, and the control horn itself comes right to the edge of those tapes. So what's going to happen is we're going to put a bunch of high sol in there, put some high sol on the control arm, stick that in, tool it with our fingers, peel the tape off, and then this will be nice and solid. This is a very accurate setup with that jig and the little bit that we used. There's not any room up and down when you install this, so it's really, really nice and solid. All right, so control horns have been glued in place. Those are all good. So for now, the Glacial Nurila aircraft needs to just sit and do its thing. Next thing we're going to do is install our incidence adjustment locations / anti-rotation pin. These are done, it looks like in Delrin. It's kind of a harder plastic material, and everything's already pre-done for these guys. So you can see there the mounting right here. There is some, I think, a template or some stickers for doing our cutouts on the horizontal stabs. I'm pretty sure those guys go right there. That ties in with our servo location right there. We're doing internally mounted servos, and so I'm pretty sure that's what these are for. Obviously, they'll go on like that, and then we router out those areas. But we're going to put our bushings in first, just because we've got those parts floating around. So those are easy to install. Everything's already pre-done for you. And that wraps up video number 2 in the Nurila Glacial F3A aircraft assembly process. It's been a fun build so far. Very, very tricky. Lots of cool things, lots of delicate, important, and accurate things that we need to make sure we're doing 100%. So it's been fun so far. Next video, of course, we'll just continue on and start getting some of our other important things installed. So hopefully you've enjoyed this process so far, something a little bit different, which is valuable for everybody, whether you fly jets, pattern planes, whatever you fly. Some of this techniques can definitely be transferred to other aircraft. Want to encourage you guys to check out our live channel, which is the lighter side of RC After Dark. We do live streams there from the channel, and we do them usually every 2 weeks in the winter time, and they're usually about an hour to 2 hours long. We've kind of been keeping it around that hour mark. It's tons of fun because we get to interact with each other. So if you're on the live, you can ask questions, real time, and everything is tons of fun. And usually some shenanigans are happening. So thanks guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.